Hi, guys. Okay, I forgot to send out the email, so I just did that in case some people are looking for that to get into the class. So sorry. Okay, maybe I will be on top of things next week. I don't know. We'll see. Um, I am getting caught up with updating your grades. I know some of you guys have asked about Sam not scoring things correctly, and so I'm trying to get caught up on all of that. Um, I think I still have a few more word projects to get through. Maybe I got your classes all done. I can't remember. So, um, if you think you need to have an update to any of your grade in Word, any of your projects that you turned in Word, you can review those and let me know. I haven't got to the Excel ones yet, um, so I will hopefully get to that fairly quickly. So, um, any questions about the things that you did in Module 1 or Module 2? No, not yet. Okay. Um, all right. Let me. Oh goodness. Let me try again. Okay, so we are March 2nd today. We will have class next week, and then we'll have our week off for spring break. Um, so next week we will start Access Module 1, um, and I can um, I can go ahead and make your test available towards the end of this week. If some of you want to go ahead and start working on that, um, that'll give you a few days to finish up your Excel Module 3 stuff, and it'll be there for you in case a weekend is the best time for you to do something like that. It won't be due until, well, I would want you to have it done before Sunday, or I can give you till Monday too, so you have the full week. But that would push into spring break. So if you have any plans for that Monday of spring break, you'll just want to get that done before the end of the week. So you will have, I'll just plan on making it available to you starting Wednesday in case that helps any of you. And then you'll have at least a full week plus to get that completed.
What did you want the due date to be by for that test?
Well, since our week ends on Friday, and our spring break starts on that after classes on Friday, you probably are going to want to have it done by that Friday, but I will go ahead and put it through Monday at 11:55 like we normally do. Because if you're like most of the people in the world right now, you probably aren't going anywhere anyway. So, but I'll make it available to you starting on Wednesday. So it will be available for you for an entire week plus. But just know that due date will be out there till Monday. What is that? The 15th, I guess. So if you want to wait till that long to take it, you can. It'll be available to you. So
you want to do by at least Monday the 15th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. And just because I don't want you guys spreading it out through spring break, because you'll probably would rather have it done before then. So, okay. Dylan is there. I saw him. Matt, Cassidy, Catherine, Sis. Thought I saw Drew, but I guess not. Okay. Well, we may have a couple more pop in here as we go on. So, okay. I need to get my textbook opened up. Today's one of those days where, if you know this saying, you're a day late and a dollar short, that's kind of been how my day has been today. So, lots of distractions during my day today. So I did not get things done like I needed to. That is not what I want. All right, so in Module 3, we are going to be working with, they call this a larger worksheet. I am not so certain that I would agree that it's a large worksheet. It's a little bit larger than what we have worked with in the past. But all in all, it's not as large as some of them might be. If you are going into um, a career where you're going to be using Excel a lot, you probably will find that you will be working with much larger worksheets than what we have in this module. Um, we'll also work with charting, and we're going to do a lot of different things with the charts, just so you can kind of see what some of the different things are you can do. You will also need to remember that even though we're only learning like one little aspect of making a change in a chart, um, try to relate that to some other changes that you could make in a chart. And you'll probably be able to figure out that making a similar change is just going to be a matter of clicking on a specific area. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the charting stuff. Um, and then towards the end of the chapter or the module, it has us go through and use something called the what if analysis. And what this will do is, so we're going to be working with a 6-month financial projection, and so we're talking the whole time about unknown numbers. So we're just projecting what might happen. And so after those 6 months, let's say that we would like to have our net income be $500,000 in 6 months. So you can set your 6-month net income to be $500,000, and then you can change certain parts of your worksheet, and then it will do all the calculations to show you what those results would be by changing a specific cell. So that is where we're going to learn how to do. If you remember in Module 1, I talked, well, we didn't really have Module 1, but in Module 1, we did talk about relative cell references. And so tonight we're going to learn about absolute cell references. And I know that Excel Module 1, many of you got counted off in the SAM projects for that because they wanted you to use an absolute cell reference. Some of you figured out how to kind of get around that and make the results come out the way they were supposed to, but it still counted you off because you didn't use the absolute cell reference. So we'll learn about that tonight to see how to go about doing that the proper way. We're also going to learn something tonight that we'll be using a function called the if function. And for any of you that have that logical mind going out there, this will be something that's probably right up your alley. What we will be doing is with our 6-month financial projection, we're going to decide, I think I have the right one in my brain here. We're going to decide if our employees are going to earn a bonus for each month. And so that's going to be based on certain criteria that we have in our spreadsheet. So if they have so many dollars in sales, then they will receive a bonus. If they don't have a particular number of sales in a month, they will not receive the bonus. So the answer to that question will show up in the cell where we put that function, and it'll either be 0 or whatever the amount of the bonus is. So those are kind of the big areas of Module 3. But I'll go ahead and show you what kind of some of this will look like. Let me get my Excel up here. And that is not the one I want. Okay, why did that not bring this over here? Oh my gosh. All right, let me get you guys over here so I can see if you need anything. Okay, so this is, whoops, I gotta share my screen with you guys. Okay. So here is what your finished product is going to look like in the spreadsheet version of this. So again, at the beginning, it's going to give you those requirements that you have. One thing you'll notice here with the title, because that's what you typically put in first, is they're not having you merge and center that across all of those columns. But what they are having you do is select that range that would be like the top where of the worksheet where we have been merging and centering. And then you're just going to use a fill color for that whole section. So it's going to give the look that it's all merged and centered, but it's not actually done. And that allows you to put a date in over here. And while I'm talking about that date, that's not just, you're not just going to type in 03, 02, 2021. This is something that's called a now function. And if you look up here at your formula bar, you'll see that it says equals now, open and close parentheses. And if I double click over here, you'll see that is the formula that you put in. And that is, it puts in the current date and time. And so when you open this up tomorrow, it would say March 3rd of 2021. And then you can format it however you want. Like I said, it will come in with a date and time, and you'll have to format it using your format cells or going into the date option here. I'm not sure either one of those will work. So you can go into the dialog box function there to format the date in the way that they want that. So that's what your date reference is up there. Some of you may know how to do this rotation already, but what you're going to do, I'll just go down here and type in January. So once we have January typed in there, you are going to, I think we have to go into the format cells dialog box because they want us to put this at 45 degrees. And I'm not sure that that's an option. Let me just say, okay. So you'll see there that it changes that to that 45 degrees. I don't think that's an option up here. You can angle it clockwise, but I don't think it puts it at the specific degree that it wants it. I would just have to double check on that. But once you get the date in, then you'll copy that across through June. Well, actually, you probably are going to format it to no, because you'll do a calculation up here. But once you have the dates in, then you'll come over and you can type the word total and chart, and you notice how it automatically adjusts that to have that rotation in there. So you don't have to wait until you get them all done. You can do just the word January, get it formatted the way you want it, and then fill it in. And then it will make anything that's after that kind of keep the same formatting that you see. It will increase the width or the height of that row automatically, but you may have to resize that as well. Once you have your months put in, then you'll come over here and you'll put your row headings in. Once you have the row headings in, then they are going to have you I thought we talked about indenting already, but you'll have these in, and then you will come to rows 9 through 13, and in your alignment section, the decrease indent will move these back to the left. The increase indent will move them in to the right a little bit. You're just going to use that one time. You can also find that in your dialog box where you're in the alignment section. Right here, you'll see where it says indent. So I just like to show you guys a variety of ways to get to things. But that's how you would indent. And most of the time, you're probably going to use your ribbon to make those changes. We are going to have an area of our worksheet that's referred to as the what if assumptions. So you'll see those listed here. If you look at the names of those, you will notice that several of those are the same as our expenses up here. So what we're going to do when we get ready to determine our expense, like the salary expense, we are going to have that be 25% of our anticipated revenue. And so we'll learn how to put in the formula for that. But that's what this what if assumption is going to be used. These are going to be the absolute cells that we come back to. So whenever we refer to B19, B20, B21, these are going to have that absolute cell reference that we have been talking about. And so that'll make more sense when you get to them. But to figure your salary, you'll have your cost, or I'm sorry, your anticipated revenue times the let me get on the right one here, times B22, which is where we find that 25% for our salary. So all of these calculations are going to be based off of our what if assumptions down here. So we'll get more into that. But what you're going to do is you're going to copy, if I can select them all, you're going to copy all of your expenses, and then you're going to paste them down here. And you'll notice that you have margin that's above bonus, and then you have sales revenue for bonus, which is between the bonus and the salary. So we're going to have to add some rows in here. If I just take this one out, I'll show you. What you'll want to do is, whoops, I'm going to delete that row. Okay, so you'll come up here with, it'll just say bonus, salary, site rental, and all of that. So what you're going to do is you're going to come over and you can do insert a sheet row. When you do that, you will get the option over here in your insert options to format the same as above, which would format it like this what if assumption cell, or you want to format the same as below. And you want to choose the format the same as below. And that way, when you type in there your word margin, it's going to automatically be indented for you. And it will take on all the other formatting that it has, what size of font and all of that kind of stuff. So um, that I just wanted to show that to you because you already have formatting in there. You're going to need to make sure you know how to do that option to format the same as below. Once you get your headings put in for your what if assumptions, okay, once you get your headings put in here, you are going to enter the information in column B. And do you notice here how they have percents, they have commas and decimals? That is because when you type them in, you're actually going to type in 81.25, and then you're going to type the percent sign there. You want to format this range specifically as it tells you in your textbook, because this is what's going to be used when you do your absolute cell references. And it will use that formatting. Also, when we come back to change, let's say that we're going to, instead of having 25% of our revenue go for salary, we will just want 20%. So you'll notice when you change that from 25 to 20, all you have to do is put in the 20 and it keeps that formatting for you. So that's one of the reasons that we're going to make sure we type in the formatting that goes along with these cells here. Oh, the one thing I did want to show you is we talked about doing a copy and paste, and I know you guys have probably done cut and paste, and I know I showed you in Microsoft Word how to do like the click and drag to copy. You can do that in Excel as well. Once you have your selection made, you can put your mouse on that outside border and it will turn into that four-headed arrow. Then you will be able to right click, and as you drag, oh, sorry, no, you got to hold your control key down. Let me try that again. I'll escape from that. Okay, you got to hold your, once you get your four-headed arrow, you can click with your mouse, and then as you hold your control key down, you'll see that there's a plus sign by that. When you see that plus sign, that's when you can let go and it will move, or I'm sorry, it will copy and put into that new location whatever it was that you had selected. I think we've talked about inserting and deleting cells before in your worksheets, but you just want to make sure, well, I would always recommend that you insert an entire row or remove an entire row or column. That just helps if there is any calculations going on there or if there is any data in there, just helps to make sure that you either remove all of it or that it warns you that there is information in there that's being deleted. If you start deleting just specific cells and it starts moving stuff up a row or over left or right a column, then it can get your calculations off because the cell that you were referring to is either not there or has moved location. So it's always a good idea to do an entire row or column. Okay, so after you have that information put in your what if analysis, you will, in the revenue, because these numbers are projected numbers, you are going to type all of this information in row 4. So for each month, you'll have to type that information in specifically. Now, when you get to the total, you're going to do a sum over there. So you just have to type in those 6 numbers. Double check and make sure that you have them in correctly. If you want to go ahead and do a sum over here, if your total over here in H4 does not match up with what is in the textbook, then you know you've entered something incorrect there. If you've gone ahead and done the calculation for the cost of goods sold and the gross margin, and one of those numbers is off, then you can narrow it down to that specific column. So just keep that in mind. And when you are entering this information, these are going to be unformatted. So you might have some rounding issues. So keep that in mind as well. If you're not getting the exact penny number, then it is probably a rounding thing. And once you add decimal places, it will work itself out. But that's just a way that you can kind of check to see that you have the data in there correctly. All right. Then it goes through and it shows you, or it has you step through putting in that now function for your date. And we'll start talking about absolute and or absolute versus relative referencing. In your textbook, there is a good explanation of this, and it kind of takes you through and shows you different examples. So if you're a picture person or you're a visual person, you probably want to really look at those, and that will probably make a little bit more sense. Also, as you sit down and do it, it will probably make a little bit more sense to you. So what we mean by an absolute cell reference is our cost of goods sold is going to be determined by our projected revenue times 1 minus whatever we have in B19. Which is called our margin. So let me get in the right cell here. So in B5, my calculation will be equals whatever is in B4, so the revenue. I'm going to multiply that times 1 minus this 81% here. So once you do the 1 and you subtract the 81.25%, what does that give you? 1875 or something like that. I don't know. I don't do math in the air. I call it math in the air, math in your head. My dad was a math teacher, and he drove me nuts how he would add up numbers just in his head. I never could do that. So I get my fingers and count and do my calculator and stuff. So anyway, so it's approximately whatever this is times around 20%, but not quite. So that gives us our cost of goods sold. Now, when you get ready, like you would do, to fill this with your fill handle over, if you do not use the absolute cell reference to B19, well, let me just show you what happens here. Okay, so my absolute, I'm going to double click here so you can see this a little bit easier. So we're going to have B4 times 1 minus B19. And you'll notice that the B19 has dollar signs in front of that. If I were to remove those dollar signs and just have it be what's called a relative cell reference, when I copy this to the other 5 months that I have, I am going to get my revenue times 1 minus whatever is in C19. So 1 minus nothing is 1. So then I have my revenue and my cost of goods being the same, which is not good because then I don't have any gross margin. So for February through June, I have no gross margin, which is not good because then it puts me in the red in all of these months because I don't have any money to pay my expenses. And that is all because we left out the dollar sign in front of the B and in front of the 19. The dollar signs, I don't know why it's dollar signs. It could have been a question mark. It could have been an asterisk. It could have been, I don't know what. But to put those dollar signs in, you can press your F4 key. Now, I will tell you right now, I had an HP laptop or a Dell, I can't remember. But my F4 key would not make the dollar signs appear. And I finally figured out that it was because I either had to use the control or the alt key or whatever that function key was to make that work. So if you're using a laptop and you press that F4 key and you don't get the dollar signs, try other key combinations to see if you have to hold down the function key to get that to work, or what. But once you have the proper absolute cell reference in there with the dollar signs, then when you copy that across, each cell, each column as you go across, the first cell reference is going to change. So that it goes from B4 to C4 to D4. But the second cell reference to the B19 is always going to come back to cell B19. So that's what we refer to when we're talking about an absolute cell reference. It makes it always come back to that cell. Or I like to say it absolutely comes back to that cell where your data is. And that just kind of helps you get that in your brain a little bit if you think about it that way. It absolutely has to be multiplied by a specific cell. So that's how you'll do your formulas for January. You'll use the what if assumptions cell references with absolute value in each of these calculations when you are figuring out your bonus, your salary, your site rental, your marketing, and your miscellaneous. What was I going to tell you? Oh, your gross margin. Guys, this is another one of those subtraction problems that you have to get written correctly. I would recommend that if you like write down on a piece of paper, typically we do, like if you're doing a subtraction, I would put the 1,470,500 on the top line. I would put the 275,718.75 on the bottom line right below it. And then you would put the little minus sign right here, correct? And so then you would bring down or carry the, oh, hold on. Those of you that didn't do new math, you won't understand this. But if you're old school like me or learned the real math, then, you know, you have to borrow and carry it over and do all of that. And anyway, you come up with 25 cents after you get that and so on. So if we're writing that in a cell or in a formula for Excel, then you have to write it just like you see it here. So you want to take this number and then subtract your cost of goods sold. But so many times in Excel instructions, it is written subtract wrong column here. Subtract B5 from B4. And whenever people read that, they automatically put in, they make these backwards. They'll type B4 minus, B5 minus B4, because those are the numbers, that is the order that they're given in their instructions. I always thought it was odd because I always learned it, subtract whatever from whatever. But I was in one of my daughter's elementary classes, and one of their teachers used take away. So they would say revenue, we need to, how did they word it? But it would be like the 1 million, take away 275, or take away the cost of goods from the revenue. So I don't know how you need to think about it, but I would, however you learn to do subtraction, I put that on a notebook piece of paper, do it in longhand, or you don't have to do the whole thing in longhand, but set it up the way you would, and then make sure that your formula that you type in matches up to it the way that it needs to be. So obviously this cell is going to have 2 cell references that are not an absolute cell reference, because we need those to change as they go from one column to the next. Okay. All right. I'm sure none of you are showing me your face right now, but any questions about absolute cell references?
No.
All right. Then I'll go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so basically you're just going to take not bonus, we're going to talk about bonus here in just a second, but basically you're going to take each one of these, the salary times the percent, the site rental times the percent down here, the marketing times this percent, and so on. And you only have to do that for column B. Once you have that all in column B, then you're going to use your fill handle to fill all those formulas across. We learned how to look at the values version, I think last week. So if I just pop over here to the values version, you can see where all of those cells have those dollar signs for your absolute cell reference as we go across there. All right, we'll come back and we will talk about how to figure out if we get a bonus or not. So this is where we're going to use an if statement or the if function. In your textbook, again, it probably gives a better explanation than I can, but I like to try to break this down so that it's a little simpler for those of us that don't have a logical mind to us. There's 3 things that you need to remember that an if statement is made up of 3 things. And if you can remember those 3 things, that will help you. I'm not going to guarantee that you will get your if statement written correctly, but if you can remember there are 3 parts to it, that will probably help you. So the first part is what we call the logical statement or the logical test. So in this case, it is B4 greater than or equal to B21? So that's our logical statement. Is B4, which is where our revenue is, or our estimated revenue, is that larger than what we have down here in B21, which are our sales revenue for bonus. So it looks like this is 1,400,000, this is 1,200,000. So yes, that it would be a true statement. So let me come back here so we can look. Here's our if statement. You guys can probably see it better here. So this is our logical test, B4 greater than or equal to B21. If that is a true statement, that's the second part. Value if true. So you have logical test is your first part. Value if true is the second part. And you'll see that it's in purple there, which takes you back to B20. B20 needs to be an absolute reference, because when we take this formula or this function and we copy it from column B to C to D to E, if B20 is not an absolute reference, then it's going to try to move over here to these cells that have nothing in them as well. So we have our logical test. The second part is the value of true. The third part is the value of false. So if this is a false statement, if they haven't gotten the amount that they need for a bonus, then it will return a 0. So 3 things to your if statement or if function: logical test, value if true, and value if false. So I am just going to get out of this, and I'm going to show you, I would always recommend using the insert function button to create an if statement, because not only is it going to help you, but it's going to step you through the process of what is that logical test, what are you going to use if it's a true statement, what are you going to use if it's a false statement. So let me just show you what this looks like if you go through the insert function. You can also check to see up here in your auto sum. You might have an if statement here if it's been recently used. If not, you can always go to the more functions, or you can just use the insert function button from the formula bar here. So here's my if statement. If you can't find that, it is probably going to be in statistical. It is probably going to be in logical. Just depends on, it's probably in both or in more than one place. So once you find it, this is why I like using the function argument dialog box, because it asks you, what is your logical test? And this little arrow at the end lets you minimize your function arguments dialog box, and you can come back and select a range if you want, if you need to, or you want to. We don't need to do that because we just need to type this. So we need to know, is B4 greater than or equal to, and then you could click down here if you wanted this number, B21. Now notice when you just click on it, B21 is not in form as an absolute cell reference. That's where you can press your F4 key and it will change to have it be the absolute cell reference. One thing I forgot to tell you about the F4 key is if you hit it more than one time, it changes to what's called a mixed cell reference, where the column B is not absolute, but the row 21 is. If you press it a third time, it reverses those. So the column is constant, but the row number is not. If you press it one more time, you're back to it being a relative cell reference. And I don't tell you that so that you know all of those different ones. I tell you that so when you get the fat finger, like some of us do sometimes, and we hit it twice, and then you're like, well, how did that happen? So just keep hitting your F4 key until you come back to have both of them show the $ in front of them. Okay, so we have our logical test in. Then your value if true, again, you can type this in, you can click on the cell. Once you have B20 in there, you can press your F4 key. The value of false is going to be 0. And so it tells us here the results is the 75,000. So this is a true statement. The other thing I need to tell, oh yes, sometimes when you are creating a logical test, your value, if true, might be a word, yes or no. And so if I use those word values, then I'm just going to get the word yes returned here, or it might be true or false or something like that. So just in case you have to do that. I think sometimes in the homework project you did that, and since I've only done this textbook for a couple semesters, or one semester actually, I don't remember if you do that in your homework project or not. So, but if you do, you know. Okay, so they give us the absolute cell reference and the if statement or if function right there back to back to make our brains go on overload. But I would encourage you to look in your textbook, read through both of those sections, and it will probably help some of you make a lot more sense of that. Okay, so I already talked about putting the rest of those formulas in. Then once you have all of that, you're going to have to do a sum here, and then you'll do another subtraction down here. And you can wait till you get all of that done, and then you're just going to highlight B5 through B16, and then you can use your fill handle. You're only going to go over to June, though, and then you're going to do sums for column H. So I know some people have had some have gotten counted off for some things. You kind of have to watch the directions. Sometimes, so this is the sum of B6 through G6. But this could also want you to do a subtraction of B4 and B5, which is probably what it's supposed to be. So if I go back here, no, it hasn't. Well, I don't know. Read your instructions, because I've messed around with this one enough that who knows if it's right or not anymore. But so just make sure that you are following the directions. If it's counting you off for a sum being incorrect, you will need to double check to make sure you're doing the addition here, or if it wants you to do the subtraction like this. So just keep that in mind as you're working through and trying to fix any errors that you might have. All right, it takes you going through the totals and figuring out those. And then in your textbook, it talks about nested forms of the if function. We are not going to do nested forms of the if function, but I'll try to explain it very quickly. Let's say that if you have $1 million in revenue, then you will earn a $2,500 bonus or a $5,000 bonus. But if you go ahead and reach the over the 1,250,000, then you will get a $7,500 bonus. So what you can do is have that that second if statement nested inside the first if statement. So your textbook explains that a little bit more. The little pictures and drawings that they have make more sense than probably what I just did. But just so you know, those of you that can think down the road there, you can have multiple levels of those if statements if you would like. But you do not need to know anything about nested if functions for testing or anything else in this class. They just throw it in there as it's possible for those of you that want to go on and figure out how to do that. Okay, and then you're going to add these little charts that we see here in column I. These are called Sparkline Charts. And there's quite a bit of information and quite a bit of things that you do. But basically you can select that entire range, and then I don't think that's where I'm supposed to go. Let me see here. I think it's somewhere else. Yes, you will go to Insert, and then you will see there's an entire little section there on Sparklines. So you can put in a line or a column or a win-loss. And again, my monitor is very wide, so you may not see all of the same options that I'm seeing. But I think you put in a line chart. Oh, and I have to choose my data range. So my data range is going to be the months of the year. I don't want to include my total column in this. If you include your total column, then you're going to have one part of your line at the very end that's really high, or one column that's really tall, and everything else is going to be very tiny. So you want to make sure you get the right range. And then when you say okay, you will see the little lines come. And then they have you change the style to something, and they have you change it from lines to columns. And so just whatever the directions say, that's pretty simple. It's all right there. If you click out of it and you get to a different place, you can always go back, and then you'll see that you have a Sparkline option here, which takes you directly to that. You should also be able to go into, oh, no, you don't have a dialog box there. So you'll just have to click on the Sparkline to make your changes there, however you need to do that. Then the next part of your textbook is formatting the worksheet. So a lot of these things that we've done, you're going to, again, have your top row, your total basically row, this top row, this total row, and this row down here have the dollar signs with it. So just make sure you're using the floating or the fixed dollar sign according to the directions. Then you change the size and font of different things. You are going to apply self styles. Now, let me point out to you, I think I've done this in some of the textbook things that I have done, but I can't remember if I did this live with you guys last week or not. When they have you format your months or column or row 3, they will tell you to start in A3 and go to I3. And a lot of students don't want to start in A3 because there's nothing in A3. So they only format B through I. Well, the Sam, when he grades, is looking to see that A3 has been formatted to match all of these. So if you're getting counted off for things like that, make sure that you're getting A3 selected. Also, in some of the charting, and it may be this one, where you are going to select the months of the year, and then maybe we're going to do our operating income for the year. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. That's probably what we're doing. But if you start in column B, and you don't have that information in column A, it's not going, or when it makes your chart, Excel is not going to know what to call these numbers. So make sure you're using the exact range that they're wanting you to use when you do any of this formatting. You'll also be using the format painter again. Once you have A4 set, you're going to use that formatting on the rest of this. Now, one time, and I can't remember which it is, once you apply that formatting, it messes with this, and you have to apply like the total style again or something. I'm not sure why they don't put that correctly in the textbook, but then you're going to create your chart. Oh, also they do make you go through and format your what if assumptions. Again, this cell B18 is a problem for people, and people get counted off a lot of times because they'll have you format this with a 9-point font, looks like, but people don't make B18 have that same font. So sometimes that goes against and counts you off. So just make sure when you're formatting your what if assumptions that you're getting the correct range as you do that. The next thing that you do is you're going to put in what's called a clustered column chart. And let me go back because I didn't see. Oh, darn it. Yeah. So here, this is where they're going to have you select A3 through G3. Again, make sure you don't get that total column in H, or it will mess things up for you. So we have row 3, and then we're going to get row 16, A through G. Oh, sorry, that's not right. This is what we want, and then we want all of our expenses. So we're going to get A9. So that's not right. I gotta hold down the right key. Control key, A9 through G13. So our chart's going to tell us what expenses we have, how much our expenses are for each month. So you'll have that selected, and then you'll go up to insert, and they have you do, which is a little bit different. They're going to have you click on recommended charts, and you are going to select the clustered column chart. So that's the one that they have here. And so when you click OK, yours is going to create something that looks like that. So you can see here that the bonus is not very high, even for those 3 months that they get it. The salary is the thing, and that's going to be high for a lot of things because that's what you got to do. You pay your people. So, but this will come in on your regular worksheet, and then you are going to need to move it to its own sheet. So you'll see here that I have the expense chart sheet as a separate sheet. It's going to come in and look like this. If you take this chart and you cut it from here and you paste it into a new sheet, this is not a chart sheet. A chart sheet will have the entire chart on a big sheet where you can see it very well. So make sure you don't just cut it, paste it. What you have to do is, I'm just going to get rid of this sheet here because it's going to add one. So here's my chart that came in. To move this, we will go to our chart design tab, and you won't see that unless you have your chart selected. So you're not going to see that chart design until you click on the chart, go to chart design. The very last thing in the ribbon is the move chart, and you want it to be a new sheet, and then you will call it expense chart. I'm not going to name it the same thing because it won't let me, but when you give it a new sheet name and you click on it, then it puts this in as your entire sheet and not just paste it into a worksheet. So I have a lot of students that have problems getting that done correctly. So hopefully that will help you guys. And I think you guys have worked with put in chart titles before, so you'll have a place to do that. You will have to highlight and delete and type over, but that shouldn't be too difficult for you. You'll put in some data labels, which I know we've done before. You are going to apply what's called chart filters. So once we have our chart selected here, you'll see the little filter icon, and they will have you, I don't know, what are we going to remove here? Bonus and salary, because these other three are really kind of what we're going to be looking at. How can we make changes to those? So if you remove the bonus and the salary and you apply that, then you only have the site rental, marketing, and miscellaneous showing up in your chart. And so that's just filtering the information that's shown. Now, these next parts, some of them we may have done, some of them we're going to do, or you may have done parts of it or something similar to this, but they have you add an axis title. So we have the X and Y axis, and I can't ever remember which one is which, because whenever I did all that graphing back in geometry or algebra or something, I didn't pay attention. So, but we have an X-axis and a Y-axis, and you're going to add a title to that specific axis. So, you probably, I'm not sure if you have the $sign, you probably don't have anything there. So you can just click over here where your dollar values are. And then if you do a right click, you're going to see down at the bottom where it says Format Axis. When you go into Format Axis, then you get this pane that pops up over here on the right edge of your worksheet area. And you have axis options and you have text options. And in each one of those, you have, this one is fill and line, this is effects, this is size and properties, and then you have axis options, which is what you see here. When you go to text options, you have text fill, you have text effects, and you have text box. So make sure that you are familiar. They don't always do a great job of telling you go to the fill and line icon. So you may have to just kind of look around and see. The other thing they're not great about doing is explaining once you are in the axis options where you go. Like for instance, one of these, you will come down here to number and you have to set the decimal places to 0. Well, if you're not in the right place, then you're not ever going to see number, okay? So you have to make sure that you're in the right place where you see number as an option over here in the format axis. So let me go back here. We are wanting to labels. I think that's what I need. No, I need, see, I started clicking on all of that and I got it off on the wrong place. Okay, that's what I thought. It was this one. This is your what's it called? Size and properties. So size and properties, and then this is where you will change the text direction. It's probably set to rotate this way, where it has. Oh, hold on, I didn't do this right, because we have to add. We have to add that $sign there, because I don't think it was there before. Or if it is, it doesn't say, it says something else. So you have to go in and change the text direction to horizontal instead of this direction. And then you also will go in, this is where you'll go in and set the numbers to 0 or the decimal places to 0. So you'll be using this format axis pane over here quite a bit to make some changes to these charts or to the chart at the end of this module. You'll also change the chart style, which again, you can do from your format, your chart here, or you can also do that from the format tab when you are in your chart. So either way will get you where you need to, I'm sorry, you have to be in chart design to find your chart style, or in this little pop-out menu here. Okay, so let me come back. I'm going to delete this right now so that you guys don't get too confused with having 2 of those already in there. So what happens whenever you put in your expense chart is it usually pops in on the the left-hand side of where our database, or I'm sorry, our worksheet was. So we had our 6-month financial projection. When we added our chart sheet, it came in, and so now it is shown first in our sheet tabs down here. You will have to rename these sheet tabs and color the tabs as well. So you have to make sure that you're in the correct design color. But you also are going to learn to move your expense chart sheet to the right of your 6-month financial projection worksheet. And so all you have to do is once you have it selected, then you're going to click and drag, and you'll see the little paper icon show up, and you'll also see a little black triangle. Wherever that little black triangle is, when you release your mouse, that is where your sheet will be moved to. So now I have my 6-month financial projection sheet showing in the first spot, and then the expense chart is after that. Most of us that read left to right, that's how we want things done. So that's how you would move that chart sheet. I will tell you, as I was checking through some of the last things, when it tells you to run the spell checker, you need to make sure you run the spell checker, because especially if you're opening a document for your homework that they give you a lot of information already for, they are going to put typing errors in there. So, and they're easy typing errors if you run the spell checker. But if you don't run the spell checker, then you're probably not going to find them because you're not looking for them. Okay, so then I think it goes on to talk about to preview and print your worksheet. Oh, and you can check the spelling in multiple worksheets at the same time. You can select multiple worksheets. So right now, my 6-month financial projection worksheet is selected. If I were to go and act like I'm going to print this, it's just going to print this sheet. It's going to print my active sheet. And so it would just print 1 of 1. I can say here to print the entire workbook, which would print both pages. So if I change it to that, change it to the entire workbook, now I'm going to get 2 pages. So my first page will be this worksheet. My second page is going to be that chart. Oh, and I forgot to take that filter off. I probably should show you guys how to do that. So to take your filter off, you're just going to go back to that filter icon, and then you can either click here and select them all, or you can just take those check marks out so that everything is selected and showing, because you want everything to show. And then you do have to hit apply. So that's what it should look like when you get ready to turn it in. You can also select, like, so I have my chart sheet selected. If I hold down my control key and I select the 6-month financial projection, you'll notice how both of them are kind of whited out and you just see a little bit of a glow down at the bottom of those. So now both of those worksheets are selected. This is where you could go up here to your review and do the spell check, and it's going to check both of them because they're both active. Also, if you go into print, it's automatically going to be printing the entire workbook because you had both of them selected. So if you change it to print active sheets, it's still going to print both sheets because both sheets are active right now. So you would have to make one of them not be active by clicking out of one and clicking to the other. So now there's only one sheet that's active. Then they just have you work with the Zoom. They do talk about printing a little bit. You will learn how to split your worksheet up into different panes so that you can see different sections of it. And again, if you have a larger monitor like I do, you probably aren't going to need to do this as often. But if you're working on a smaller screen, then you will find that this may be very beneficial. So to put in panes, we can go into the well, good grief. Where is that? Oh yeah, it is view. I've been doing this all along. Okay, and then we have to do split. So when you do a split, you are going to get a split bar that is vertical, and you can move that around. And then we should also get one that's horizontal across the page down here. So we can move that on there. So now I have a gray line here and a gray line here. And you'll notice that it goes from row 7 to row 28. So if I'm in this bottom left quadrant over here, if I scroll up, I can make row 1 show up in the top right-hand corner of that quadrant. I could also make the very bottom show up in the top. Now, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can. So likewise, you can scroll to the left or right. You just have to be in the quadrant that you want to make the changes to, that you want to do, move around. So you can use your arrow keys to move. You can go up and down. But you will only stay in that section where the panes are. So this, I mean, you could see everything, you know, from the very beginning to the very end. And in fact, here we have March showing in both places. So that is what your split pane says. You can, if you only want it to be split like from the left to the right, you can get rid of your, this would be, yeah, the horizontal one. You can just click and drag it up into the letters where the column letters are, and now that pane is gone. So you only have it split between the left and right now. So if I scroll across here, or if I come over here and I scroll this, whoops, I got to use this scroll bar here. There we go. You can scroll back and forth on the left side as well. Then to get rid of this, you can either click and drag them to the edge, or you can come up here and click the split to take it off. You will also learn how to do something that's called freeze panes. Let's say that we always want to have row 3 and above showing, and we always want to have column A showing. So a lot of students have problems with this freeze panes. I'm not sure why. I must do a horrible job of explaining it, or could be by this time in the chapter they're just done and stopped listening, but whatever. To make your split, or to make your freeze panes work, you need to go below the row that you want to always have showing and to the right of the column that you always want to have showing. So once you have that selected, in this case it's B4, then you'll come up and you will hit the freeze pane button. You will see that you automatically have 3 choices. We want to just choose freeze panes, and this is going to keep the rows and columns visible while the rest of the worksheet scrolls based on the current selection. So everything above here and everything to the left is going to be frozen. So I'm going to say keep or freeze panes, and then you'll see a little bit of a lighter colored horizontal and vertical show up. And so as we scroll up, you'll see that we always have rows 1, 2, and 3. If we were to scroll to the right, you'll see that you are only going to see what's in column A 100% of the time, and everything else changes as you scroll across there. So that is a little bit on splitting your panes and how to use freeze panes. To get rid of your freeze panes, and I think in the worksheet or the work homework, they might have you come up here and instead of doing freeze panes, I think you have to be back where you were. Yeah. So you have to be back where you were, in this case, B4, and that's where you'll go in and do the unfreeze. I think there's one of them where they want you just to freeze the top row or keep the first row or column or something. So this will only do the top row and this will only do the first column. So in this case, if you want the first 3 rows, you're going to have to click in either A4 or B4. If you don't need the columns selected like we just showed you, you can just click in A4 and it will just keep all of the stuff in across, but it'll show those 3 rows at the top. So just remember, view split panes will give you the different quadrants, freeze panes will freeze, and then you can unfreeze. Okay, we are just about done here. We are going to use the what if analysis. We're going to talk about the what if analysis section of this. And this is where you can determine, based on the information that you see here, that our operating income, and I think I called it net income, but it's called operating income here, is what number do we have here? $3,042,257.75. So that is our operating income after 6 months projected. Well, we would maybe like to have that number a little higher, or maybe we decided it looks like we're spending too much in salaries or marketing or whatever. So this is where your financial analyst can play around with the data that you have down here in your what if assumptions and see how that affects each month and your total 6-month projection. So the first thing that we're going to do is, I skipped over this. So if we go into B20, oh, Yeah, this is already at the end, what it's supposed to be at the end. So this should have been, I don't know. I'm just going to make it 5,000 now. So this will be 5,000 instead of this 7,500, but it's supposed to be 7,500 in the end. So make sure that that's what you have. But you can see, as I just changed that one number, if you watch, all of the rest of these change because of the information that I changed there. If you have your marketing set to 5%, then you'll see how that changes. So I've decreased my bonus, but I've increased my marketing. I had 3 million something, and now I'm just under 3 million. So using these can give you an idea of how things can change. So you can play around and go, okay, well, maybe we can decrease our salary. Maybe we need to increase our miscellaneous because we have some, other expenses we need to think about, or whatever. So that's how you can play around with your what if assumptions. So this technically should be 7,500 at the end, and B22 is 25, and then this is 3. And I don't remember what that was, but I think we're going to mess with it here in just a little bit anyway. So that's how you'll use the what if assumption. So that's a fairly easy part of this. But if you're not a financial analyst, those things may not mean a whole lot to you. If you're someone that's going to be running your own business, you probably need to become familiar with all of that so you can know where you could make changes or where you could cut things or add things or whatever. And if you're not good at that, then you probably want to have a financial analyst or a CPA or something that is helping you figure out what all of that means. The last thing that they show us here how to do is something that's called goal seek. And this is a step that a lot of students have some issues with as well. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think part of it is the way the instructions are written, that they want to do things a little backwards again. And part of it maybe is that they just try to do it on their own and don't really read the directions, which could be the case as well. But we have decided that we would like to have our total operating income be $3,500,000 at the end of the 6-month range. So what we're going to do is we want to set our total operating income, which is found in H16. So I'm in cell H16. I'm going to set that to $3,500,000. And I want to get there by changing B23, which is our site rental. And that's why I wasn't too worried about what that's supposed to be, because we're going to change it anyway. So to use the goal seek, you do have to go to the data tab. In the data tab, you will come over to the forecast section, and then you'll see what if analysis. When you click on that button, you will have 3 options. We're going to go to goal seek. And so you have this little box that comes up for goal seek. And if you read each part of this, it will help you step through it. We want to set cell H16 to value $3,500,000. And you don't put commas in there, you don't put decimals, so it has to be a whole number. And we want to do that by changing B23. So I think people forget to be in cell H16 when they do this, or I don't know. So here we are, we have 3,198,000, and we're going to change this to be 3,500,000. All right, so we'll click the OK button. Whoops, I got to get that out of there. Okay. And you probably should have that be an absolute cell reference. I don't know, but we will. So we'll click the OK button. it's going to do some calculations. It finally gets H16 to 3,500,000. If we come over here and we look at site rental, it has changed it to 4.14, which I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be something else, but I messed around with my numbers earlier, so don't go by what I have here. It should tell you in your textbook what it should be, but I'm having a little difficulty seeing. Maybe if I make it bigger, we'll see if I can see it. Oh yeah, it is 4.14. That's what it changes to. So now in your, before you turn this in, you want it to be what it was just before I did this goal seek. So if you press the cancel button right now, after you've done the goal seek, it will change it all back to what it was. If you, if you accidentally leave this, so once it gets changed here, if you click the OK button, then it's going to accept those changes and it will have 4.14. Now, your SAM project does not want these numbers. Your SAM project wants what we had just before this. So you would need to press your undo button to take it back to what it was before. And again, 8% is not right. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but if you happen to hit the OK button to keep those changes, you'll need to press the undo button to go back because it wants what it was previously to doing that goal seek. You will do goal seek in your training if you haven't done it yet. And I have a lot of students that struggle with the goal seek in the training because they go back to the textbook and they see that they're supposed to hit that cancel key or that cancel button at the end. So they'll do that in their training and then it won't count the training right. So in your training, you want to go ahead and accept the changes and make those changes to get that counted correctly. I know it's kind of weird, but I don't know why they don't have you keep that and turn it in with the updated, but they don't. So then the last part of this is just some extra stuff that you don't really probably need to know, but it's good to know that it's available to you. So, all right. I did not, where did I go? Where did you guys go? Oh, here. I got to do this. Stop sharing. There we go. Now I can see you all again. Okay. Oops, I got to move you over here because otherwise I'm looking funny at you. Okay. All right. So I didn't have my chat going. So okay. All right. So I'm sorry, Dylan, that you were having some issues. But I will post this. I will, once this gets downloaded and saved, I will post this on our Blackboard. And then I will also get the Excel 3 project uploaded if you guys want to work through that, this textbook project with me. So that will be available. I will make your test available. I'll make it available to come up on Wednesday for you if you guys want to get started on that. But don't feel like you have to. I just want to have it available to you so that next week, if you wanted to get a head start on it over the weekend, you could get your testing done. And then next week we'll look at Access Module 1. Any questions?
No.
No? Okay. Well, if you do, you can hang around. I'll hang around for a little bit until all of you guys are gone. Always call or email me or send me a text and tell me I have the wrong time on the assignments. And you'd think I'd be getting better at that, but I kind of figured out what my problem is. When I go in to make an adjustment, I try to type in 11 and then I think it's 11 and it actually is 1. And I've caught myself doing it a couple of times, but that's where it gets off in there. So I just have to be a lot more careful when I'm adjusting the times and stuff of those. So bear with me, but don't feel bad about giving me a holler if something's not right. So, all right. And if you guys don't have any more questions, I will see you next week or hear from you when I need to.
Thank you.
Welcome. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.